Moving on now from the quarterbacks to the running backs, sticking with the same team. Nick Chubb, everyone's all blazed with his videos and stuff like that. And I know Brian doesn't get swept up in that hype. That's why we bring him onto the show. So when you look at Nick Chubb's ACL, man, what are you thinking?
Well, first off, I don't think it was just his ACL. I think he had a multi-leg injury again, just being the second time in his career, first time being in 2015 in college. The fact that there's videos showing him squatting like 500 pounds is absolutely remarkable. And I think he actually even had a staged procedure this time around. So I think he actually had two separate distinct surgeries after this most recent injury, which is, again, remarkable. From what I do for my 9-to-5 job, man, I am so curious as to what is freaking holding this guy's knee together, because it can't be, it's got to be a lot of synthetic and things that anatomically he wasn't born with. So I don't know how much left this knee has in it, to be honest with you, dude. So I don't expect big things from him. Don't get fooled by the guy squatting 500 pounds. That doesn't translate onto the football field. Okay. That's a single plane type movement. It's purely, looking at his power and, a single plane. It doesn't translate to the field of play where he has to cut, pivot, react real time, make instantaneous decisions and movements in multiplanar fashion. So I'm curious to see how he does. I don't know if he's going to be ready in time to start the year. If I was him, I'd take it along slow, but I'm sure we'll see him back at some point.
Well, I just thought it was interesting.
How much is he going to contribute and what's he going to be like?
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that they went. I thought for sure he's going to go on the PUP list. And then going into training camp, they were talking about, well, actually, week one might not be out of the question. So now all of a sudden, maybe the PUP's not going to be a thing, even if he's not necessarily ready to go week one.
Yeah, so this guy even came back from that first injury in 2015 and did what he did is freakish.
He's a freak.
Yeah. So nothing would surprise me. Like I said, nothing would surprise me. But at the same time, it's like, man, I don't know how much that knee has left in it.
I don't know either. Like when I was going into this process, Nick Chubb was like, look, I'll put him at like RB 36 just because his name is Nick Chubb and he could be fantastic. And maybe second half we can do something like that. And I'm just going to kind of leave him there as like, yeah, low risk, high reward type of draft. I had to creep him up a little bit because if week one's on the table, again, not saying that he's actually going to be ready to go week one or hit the ground running week one, but if he's actually not going to be on the PUP, well, he's Nick Chubb at the end of the day, baby. We've seen him make this comeback before, so I'm not going to ignore that. I do have him at 30. ADP has him up at RB 35, so I'm a little bit ahead of the consensus right now. And who knows, Chase? I mean, maybe he just goes to the same school of Tajay Spears where they're like, no ACL, no problem.
Well, right, and he's got about $800 million worth of NASA technology now in his knees, so I mean he doesn't have to worry about any of it breaking ever again. We would think, right? No, I have him at 28. I'm even higher on him than you are. I like this Browns run game. I like it. I like it with Jerome Ford. I like it with Nick Chubb, and I've been taking a lot of Jerome Ford, but their ADP has started to flip flop now as we've gotten some of this better news from Nick Chubb here. The reason I have Nick Chubb at 28, like I said, I have Ford at 36 just for my preseason rankings. I like Ford. I'm getting a lot of Ford in my best ball leagues, but I like Chubb better if you can get him, and you're not going to be able to get him for a discount for very long, but if you can get him, if he's ready later in the year, that's when you want him anyway, because that's when your fantasy football playoffs and everything and your pushes are. If you can last until he gets there, he's still a special talent. I'm not excited about the injury. I'm not expecting him to do a whole lot in the beginning of the year, even if he is active, say for week one. But second half of the season, I'm all aboard the Chubb train there.
Well, let's also talk about the ADP range of which he's going in. Like I said, RB 35. He's getting sandwiched right now between Tajay Spears and Trey Benson's at RB 36. Blake Corum after that. Before Tajay Spears, you want to go the other direction.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there. Yeah,
Brian Rossum Jr. sitting at 33. Devin Singletary sitting at 32. Javonte Williams sitting at 31. I mean, you can lose 4 games in Nick Chubb and still say, like, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he performs better than those guys at the end of it. So part of it is that tier that he's going in. I'm like, look, I'd rather just take the shot on Nick Chubb than some of these other guys going in that range anyway. So that's kind of where you find yourself. And just an incredible story. And the guy's just a freak. Can't say enough about him. let's go to the other side. We go to another running back coming off of ACL. This one's a rookie, Jonathan Brooks out of Carolina. Now his was more simple, correct? A more simple ACL.
So as far as I know, yeah. And to be honest, aside from this hurting his draft stock a little bit, man, I think the Panthers made a play here for the future, and I think they're going to take him along slow, a la Breece Hall with his ACL last year, where they, kind of had an idea that he would be ready, but didn't want to rush him back. And I think we're going to see the same thing with Jonathan Brooks. Look, the Panthers, man, I live in Carolina. I live in Charlotte now. They suck. Let's be honest. So they're not going to make many waves. I think this draft was a pick for the future, and I think they'll bring him along slow. So I wouldn't really look for much production out of him from a fantasy standpoint, unless you guys think otherwise, and maybe I'm just way off. But, he should be ready at some point during the season. I just think they're going to bring him along real slow.
If they're smart, they will. I don't know if they're going to be that smart, to be honest with you. Like you have journeyman Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, who they're only keeping on the roster because they can't get rid of his contract. Otherwise, he would have been cut anyway. Oh. So I do.
They brought in Rashad Penny.
There's master of the practice squad right there. I think if Jonathan Brooks proves that he's healthy enough to go, I don't know if they hold him back. And it actually kind of reflects why I have him ranked at 28. Because he had a more simple ACL surgery than Nick Chubb, he may be more ready to go earlier in the season. And again, I just don't trust Carolina to do the smart thing here. I think they're going to try to put whatever they can around Bryce. Because the fact is, this is what it comes down to, right? It's about Bryce Young. And in order to make Bryce Young look good, you have to put the best weapons you possibly have at your disposal around him at all times in hopes that you can sell him as the franchise guy. You're not going to do that with Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders if Jonathan Brooks is healthy enough to actually play. So that's kind of my theory on the whole thing. I'm looking more of a second half surge potentially. I got him as a mid-level RB3. Chase, what do you think?
I've got him at 38 because I guess I'm hoping against hope, kind of like you said, that they do the smart thing. I'm not necessarily banking on that either. But Brooks isn't. I mean, he's a guy that in Dynasty I'm grabbing all over the place. I really am. He's by far not. I'll say it by far. When I looked at the running back, draft class this year, he was the one running back that stood out that was a surefire starter that I thought, there's no question this guy should be and is the best prospect in the draft at that position. But, like we just said, I mean, we can laugh at the names all we want. From a fantasy standpoint, I'm not excited about any of them, but they did jam that room full. They don't have to rush him along if they don't want to. I agree with you that they need to surround Bryce Young with some weapons. I'm not necessarily sure that they will force Jonathan Brooks on anything on him to begin with. So I don't mind taking the flyer on him, but I don't want him as anything more than my running back 4.
Now, look, in any case, wherever you're drafting him at, again, his ADP is around the mid-level RB3. You're taking him with the hopes that there's a second half surge, not for the month of September. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Another running back I feel like we're talking about all the time, and he has burned me so many times. J.K. Dobbins.
And he shouldn't have, because I've been giving you injury updates on him for multiple years.
I know.
Have you not been listening to me?
Why don't they listen?
So here's the thing, Brian. I listen to you. I do. But I have been infatuated with J.K. Dobbins since Ohio State because he could just be so good when he's on the field.
I'm right there with you, Dan. Damn it.
I know, Dan, but that's why you've got to turn, when you turn to people like me who are able to separate that stuff from all the noise, and you look at the facts and you look at the physiology behind his injuries, which are numerous and significant. That's really the key here, because if you look at his stats, he's had like 5 injuries over the last 3 seasons and 2 of them in the last 12 months, but it's an ACL and an Achilles. The ACL, which happened, I believe, early in the 2023 season, and then the Achilles, which happened late in the season. So, I mean, like, and even when he came back, it was right around the same time that Gus Edwards was coming back. Do you remember we had these conversations? And I kept saying that, guys, J.K. Dobbins is going to be the one that's going to struggle to get back the most. He's the one that I think is going to have the bigger issue. And sure enough, he did. And then this is what happened. it's not good at the running back position. He will lose power. I think this might even be the same knee that he tore the ACL. And even if it isn't, it's still a devastating injury at the running back position where you need to be able to change, pivot, cut direction, and explode off that Achilles. Everybody loses power with this injury. There have not been many guys in the NFL at the running back position that have been able to come back from these two injuries in such a short period of time and be explosive and make a wave like they did before them. So unfortunately, he's not in a good situation here. I think he'll be able to contribute. I just don't think you're going to see the J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State you wished you could have seen all along.
It was just Brian, even coming off the injury. The guy was on one leg, coming back from his ACL injury too fast, and still getting 5 yards of carry.
Yes.
Like, it was ridiculous.
But is that him, or is that more the Ravens, that team that he was
Who
on?
cares? He followed Greg Roman over, still the same anyway. Like, it doesn't change what system he's in. But yeah, this is the year. Look, first and foremost, J.K. Dobbins' ADP is all the way down at 48, 49. Like, if you're drafting J.K. Dobbins, it's super late as a flyer to begin with. And I might take that flyer late in drafts. But with the Chargers, the bigger question here, Chase, is what we should probably just get into a little bit. We've talked about it before. We're going to talk about it multiple times from here on out. Is just what flyer are we taking on when it comes to the Chargers backfield? Because frankly, it's wide open, man. I mean, look, we know what Gus Edwards is. He had a great fantasy season because he fell into the end zone 13 times last year. Outside of that, was really mediocre across the board with his stats. There's this kid, Kamani Vidal, who, like, I'm not disinterested in, but I'm also not buying the hype of a 6th round running back pick as much as everybody else is.
Right.
And then there's J.K. Dobbins. I don't know. When you look at the Chargers backfield, if you had to pick one, who do you think is going to be the guy?
If I have to pick one, and I don't
by
want
the end
to
of
have
the
to.
not September, by the end of the season.
Well, I mean, if I have to take one now, I'm taking Gus Edwards.
Right.
I will caveat that by saying I did take a flyer on Kamani Vidal in my Scott Fishbowl draft because I think that he does have some upside. To the extent that this Greg Roman offense maybe does actually throw a little bit to the running back or whatever else, I think Kamani Vidal has the most skill out of the three of them, Edwards, Dobbins, and himself. I think that Vidal probably fits that kind of a role the best. And if you want to look at who maybe, could take over the entire skill set, the 3-down skill set, Vidal has that capability. I'm with you. I love Dobbins. I love what he can do. If there's going to be a goal line vulture, it could be him. So if you're into that kind of thing, I mean, yeah, go ahead and take Dobbins. Edwards is the best bet to start the season, but I don't necessarily want it's frustrating because it's a Greg Roman offense. So you know that if they had one dude who was going to be the dude, he would eat all damn day long. But we have your guess is as good as mine. You're reading tea leaves if you think that you know what's going to happen with these three guys. So I really don't want to have to take a chance on any of them. Edwards is probably your best bet to draft early in the season, but yeah, the best ball, take a shot at Vidal and skip the other two and get guys that are going better in that range.
Yeah, look, Edwards is ranked the highest. He's going to be starting off the year. He's the safest pick to go with. There's just not a lot of upside that goes along with it, so you're looking to take shots elsewhere. All right, so this other running back here kind of gets buried in the depth chart a little bit now, but Keaton Mitchell was making waves for a short period of time, and then he blew his ACL. So what happened to him?
Yeah, and it happened late in the season last year, unfortunately. So he's already been placed on PUP heading into camp this year. And Harbaugh has already been quoted as saying that he's probably going to be back at some point this season, but has been short of saying when. From there, it's anyone's guess. With PUP, especially if you're on reserve PUP, you're at least out the first 4 games, not weeks, games. And then from there, he should be ready somewhere around October, November, based on the timeline. But again, if they're going to bring him along slow, you might not really see him get any significant action until you head into December and later in the year.
And you have Derrick Henry in front of you now, too, so it doesn't really help matters.